The Beatitudes are the list of qualities that Jesus gives to us of a person who is blessed or who should be congratulated. They're a searching test for every one of us. Most of us love the idea of being self-assured and confident, but Jesus says, "Blessed are the poor in spirit." We all look for happiness, but Jesus says, "Blessed are those who mourn." We tend to admire the self-assured, assertive person, but Jesus says, "Blessed are the meek." And when so many of us are treating righteousness as a weekend hobby to be explored, Jesus says, "Blessed are those who hunger and thirst after it." Now, in Matthew 5:7, Jesus says, "Blessed are the merciful, for they will be shown mercy." And so we ask ourselves an important question today. Am I merciful? Now, mercy is not just an easygoing temperament. It isn't being permissive or lax with others. It's not saying, "That's no big deal," or "in every situation," or that's all right, it's cool. To think of mercy as a temperament would be to miss what we've been talking about many times in this series. And that's that the Beatitudes are not natural to any of us. They aren't the result of a natural temperament or disposition. They're the result of the Holy Spirit's work in us to make us like Jesus. And so when we come to Him in poverty of spirit, in mourning for our sinfulness, humbled by His goodness and hungering after His righteousness, we find a pathway to becoming more and more like Jesus. Being merciful begins with seeing a wrong for what it truly is. True mercy is eyes wide open about the wrongs that have been committed against us. Mercy requires a painful awareness of the impact of that wrong and a true accounting of the cost of that selfishness to me or to others. It often means a deep acknowledgement of our own hurt or loss. But it doesn't end there. In Matthew chapter 18, Jesus tells a story of two men who each owed debts. In his story, one man owes over $1 billion. Basically, it's an absurd amount of money, and how any credit card company would allow somebody to rack up that kind of debt is also absurd. But when this man is called on to pay his debt, he begs for mercy, and Jesus in his story says the debt is miraculously forgiven. So then that same man goes to somebody else who owes him $1,000, and he tells him to pay up. And that guy can't pay either, but the man who had already been forgiven his debt chokes that guy and demands that he pay in full. When others see this happening, this unmerciful man is called out and ends up being punished. It's a powerful story that Jesus is telling about mercy, and its meaning is pretty straightforward, even if it's hard for us to accept. Jesus is saying that each one of us has been forgiven our billions. The debt that we owed God because of our sin and selfishness was unpayable, and it was an absolute miracle that we've been forgiven at all. Once we truly understand this, it changes our attitude toward others. When God's mercy is the context for all of our interactions and relationships, we will be inclined to show mercy. How could we not? When we're not merciful to others, it's like choking them out for a few Benjamins when God has already forgiven us our billions. So when Jesus says, "Blessed are the merciful, for they will receive mercy," He isn't saying that unless we show mercy, we won't get any. He's saying until we've understood God's mercy toward us, how great our debt was that was forgiven, we won't even be equipped to show mercy to others. And so, this is what follows. If we haven't shown mercy or we struggle showing mercy to others, maybe it means that we haven't truly understood and received mercy from God. Today, I want us to think about the mercy that was on display on the cross. When Jesus prayed for forgiveness for those who were killing Him, when He thought of you and me, whose sin He was paying for, He had compassion on the very people who were condemning Him. That's the kind of mercy that has been directed toward you and toward me. So, my question is, what would happen today if you were as merciful toward others as God has been toward you? How would your interactions with others be different? What would happen if we truly understood and received God's mercy toward us? Jesus, I believe, is challenging us to check our own hearts by measuring the mercy that we're showing to others. And then he says this, he says, "Blessed are the ones who show mercy, because in doing so, we open our eyes to the love and sacrifice that's required to be merciful. We learn what it's like to absorb another person's debt. We experience what it's like to not treat others as they deserve. And in doing that, we experience a deeper joy and gratitude for the mercy that God has extended to us. Blessed are the merciful, for they will be shown mercy."